Hello everyone, welcome to Warwick Podcast Society. Again, we are here on our fourth episode and we have a very interesting guest today who's also a fellow MBA candidate, Mr. Abdul Malik. Everyone knows him as Malik, and he has done his bachelor's from States, Rutgers University, and before doing his MBA, he has worked with KPMG and a project manager at KPA Inc. and today he's gonna give his advice on his consulting experience before and with what he has enhanced with his MBA. So welcome, Malik.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Suki. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for doing this. So before we move on further, we just want to know your personal background and a bit about your journey before you started the MBA as well. So can you give us a bit about personal and your professional background before starting the MBA?
Yeah, sure. So I think you mentioned already that I did my undergrad at Rutgers, but then I think I want to go slightly further back. So doing my undergrad at Rutgers, I actually did some internship of some sort at Diageo, which is, the brewery, and it was Guinness specifically, and that was back in Nigeria. And it wasn't a long program, just like 2 weeks, and we pretty much watched all the operations. So from, turning the raw materials, taking them into the brewery, bottling of the drinks, and also distribution across the country. And for me, that was really interesting. I didn't really know what I wanted to do prior, but then after that experience, I was like, okay, fine, this is definitely something that I want to look into. I didn't know what it was. Is it just business management? Is it economics? Like, what exactly is it? But then I had a conversation with my dad at the time, and seeing as he was pretty familiar with, production lines and all of that, he then said, okay, supply chain management ideally would be, the best suit for what exactly you want to do. And then looking up schools in the US, I'm like, okay, fine, who has a good supply chain management program? And Rutgers just happened to be, one of the highest ranked in that program specifically. So that's why I went to do that at Rutgers. After my undergrad, wasn't really set on staying in the US, but then I also knew that I had opportunities back in Nigeria to then use my degree or my, perceived expertise at the time to just start a career in that. So I got into a Greek startup, I guess. Okay. Yeah, so fully organic produce, and my role was managing like the transportation of the goods from the farm to different distribution centers, because the farm was outside the state that I lived in. I lived in Lagos and the farm was like a state away. Okay. So it was like a 2-hour drive or so. So I then had to manage that, pretty much all the logistics of it. And then it kind of got repetitive, I guess. Yeah, it's like, supply chain, but then I think logistics wasn't the best start for me. Maybe if I had done something else, it would have been better. So I then figured, okay, I want to get a more holistic view of the way businesses work. And that's when I got into consulting. That's when I went to KPMG and I joined the management consulting unit. And I think this was, for me, the best decision that I've made till date. Arguably, maybe it's second, Warwick MBA. But then, best decision career-wise, because it then gave me a much broader perspective of the way businesses work in general. And what I focused on while in management consulting was process improvement. So process redesign, process design, business efficiency, operational efficiency, all the projects that I worked on were along those lines. And that's actually what I've specialized in now. So career going forward will be something along process improvement. I was in KPMG for a while. I then went back into industry, and this was a logistics company. Don't ask me why I did this again. But it was more so a trucking company that delivered for like large multinationals across Nigeria. So Heineken, I guess in this case would be Nigerian breweries, because Heineken owns that. We had Lafarge, some other, fairly large clients, and it was fun. Again, got repetitive. What I was doing was more so internal consulting along the lines of process improvement, how we could, make the business more efficient and all that. And again, repetitive. I was like, okay, fine. You know what? Maybe not logistics, maybe not ever. Went back into business advisory, like consulting, but this was more so business expansion. And it was pretty good. But then I realized that, okay, everyone else in this field that I know, in order to move up, even if they want to stay in consulting or they want to go somewhere else, they have an additional academic certification, which is the MBA. If it's full-time, it's part-time, doesn't really matter. As long as you have the MBA, then there's a lot more credibility to hire you into, more senior roles. So I then decided that, okay, fine, you know what? Instead of spending too much time in the industry, I'm just going to get the MBA, get it out of the way, which is why I also chose a full-time and then figure out what I want to do from there. So yeah.
No, and your KPMG experience was also into beverages, consulting and beverages, or like was it something else?
So KPMG was management consulting.
Okay.
But then the projects that I was on were like strategy projects. There was strategy development, strategy implementation. But then within strategy, I was primarily focused on operational efficiency, specifically process improvement. So I'll be the one to look at, SOPs, if they have any, look at where the shortfalls are in terms of the targets they've set for themselves in process times and things like that. Look at which areas they can improve and, then give those recommendations.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Thank you for that very detailed background. And if I have to ask you, what is now with the MBA, how are you leveraging the networking opportunities and for your consulting role, and how do you see the market changing now since when you were working with KPMG and now? What's the change and what are the opportunities?
Okay. So let me start with, I guess, what I've noticed since I got here to Warwick. I think there have actually been several opportunities presented to us and also events that have been set up specifically for consulting. I think within the first couple of months, we had the Consulting Fest where, individuals from different consulting firms came to Warwick. There was a panel discussion. There was like a brief networking session afterwards. We've also had, I think, 2 consulting simulation, events. One of them spanned across 2 days, and it just gives, whether or not you're in consulting or you had prior consulting experience, it gives one an idea of, what exactly a day in the life of a consultant is like, a management consultant is like. So just having those opportunities already gave me access to people in the industry here in the UK. Also, a few companies have come to campus. I mean, BCG was here, EY Parthenon, Accenture. We've had quite a few of them. And again, it's more so for building your network, your professional network. So yeah, that's been pretty helpful since I got here. Yeah,
I mean, even like I don't come from a consulting background, but like everybody was given the equal opportunity to, if they want to explore the, the future in consulting, and which kind of helped a lot of people. And a lot of people who were not even exploring opportunities are now getting into it, like with more into with different clubs coming into. So moving on to the next one, I also wanted to ask you, what do you think, like, since you already mentioned about this, about the educational background, right? Or along with the educational background, like you said, you wanted to take up MBA. What do you think? What are the skills that are essential for like a very good consulting career?
Okay. So there was initially this misconception, or I had this, misconception that to be a consultant, you needed a business background. But then after going into consulting, I realized that some of the greatest minds that I've actually, engaged with don't have any business background. So I know a lot of engineers that have been, really good consultants. I know someone who had his master's in pharmacy, and he was a solid management consultant. You don't really need that business, that business background per se, as long as you're a good critical thinker. You know how to, analyze situations and problem solve. It's a lot easier to make it in consulting. And you can imagine, as an engineer, there's a lot of process. You're following, steps, guidelines, and most of these firms have frameworks,
right?
Or I guess principles, things that they go by in order to approach client issues or client challenges. So as long as you can follow those instructions, apply your own, I guess, twist to it, where it's like, okay, fine, if I look at it from this angle, this is the way that it can be solved, then you're good. I wouldn't say there's any particular field or area of, academic study that has a significant advantage over any other one.
Like, yeah, right. I mean, you're saying basically like how obviously medical people need to have the skill, and like finance, if you need to know accounting, how what to do it, like consulting. Anybody who has the knack to it, like asking questions and then analyzing or critical analytical reasoning, would get into consulting. Right?
Yeah. I think that's for the most part that's what they look for: open-mindedness, critical thinking. That's about it.
Cool. And moving on to the next one, since we were talking about clubs and student organizations, what are the clubs you are part of or you're running in MBA or like in Warwick, and if they have enriched your experience, or how are they helping you with consulting?
Okay, so first off, there is Black in Business. I'm currently the president of the WBS Black in Business Society. Yeah. And I mean, we also have, the case club as well, where different cases are, analyzed, and, I guess solutions are preferred. And then we then look at, okay, what has been done, or what was eventually done by those companies, and then compare, look at the reasoning behind it. How has this enriched, I guess, how has this contributed to my consulting aspirations? So I think it's just more so applying what I already know, and then also seeing what else there is to learn. So for example, Black in Business, things have been done a certain way, and then I come in and I'm like, okay, process improvement. What exactly can be done differently? How can we reach more people? How can we provide more opportunities? How do we get more people to events? Things like that. It's like, okay, what are the improvements that can be made? Not saying that things haven't been done well, just for clarification. But then I guess I just always have that drive to, okay, what can be done? Where's the improvement? Again, maybe it's just force of habit, but it's also giving me room to, I guess, engage with other people, meet, more, again, networking, more people in the industry, just, again, leveraging those networks to also get more opportunities for myself as well as everyone else in the organization.
Right. And the case club helps a lot of people practicing cases.
Yeah.
Like cases just gets you into the consulting. Like that's the starting point for an interview or analyzing any cases.
Exactly.
So that's a good initiative also, which is being put up. And now with the professional network as well. So I think we recently held an event in Shard as well from the Strategic Professional Network.
Yeah.
That also like gets you more networking opportunities, especially London, where everything is happening. So that's a good one. And moving on to the current trends, or from a career perspective, what do you think? What are the current trends and changes you're seeing in the industry, and like what do you think are those? And then
okay, well, I mean, the obvious elephant in the room, which I don't know if you go a whole day without hearing this, is Gen AI, right? So you have the basic analytics or analysis that's going on in consulting, right? You need to do research, you get the data, you analyze the data, come out with insights, and then use that to make decisions, or I guess make recommendations for clients. This makes work a lot easier, right? So obviously it's almost essential now as a skill to be able to get those search queries going, efficiently, if you even want to go into consulting. If you're starting out fresh out of uni, maybe not even at an MBA level, but even undergrad level, where it's like, okay, fine, you want to become a graduate trainee. These are the kinds of skills that you would already need to have. I don't know if, firms have started training people on these, but then it's an essential skill because it would also make your life easier, right? Instead of spending hours doing certain things, you can get information summarized, with all the information that you've fed to whatever platform it is you're using. And, just, again, efficiency. It makes your work quicker, and it's also more accurate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Gen AI, nobody can, ignore it.
Yeah.
It's with every businesses, like even, I would say, finance, or any medical, everywhere. It is a part of your life. Part
of life now. Exactly. Yeah, I don't think there's any escaping.
Oh, that's true. And can you share, like from your past experiences, going back, any of managing the complex problems or any managing the consulting projects which was complex to you, and how, like any example if you can, or
Yeah, okay. So there's this project that comes to mind, and I think this is probably the one that I use for a lot of the examples that, I give anytime I'm asked a question in an interview or in a meeting. So anyone that's in a management consulting would dread being placed on an strategy implementation project, because this means, one, the project is a long-term project, two, you're most likely going to be working out of client side throughout. Again, also depends on your role, but that's most likely what it's going to be. And what this means is that the culture of that organization, you would have to embrace it.
Right.
And if it's the kind of situation where you don't get data on time, or the formatting is wrong, they give you, financial data in, scanned format where you can't copy and paste figures, things like that, it can get very frustrating.
Right.
And then if you're managing other things, maybe you have multiple work streams, like you're working on, like I was on 2 operations work streams, operations focused work streams. And then I also had like a business development work stream that I was, working on. So looking at project management from that point of view, it's like, okay, fine. These need to be done at a certain time. I need to follow up with X number of people. Where's the progress? I also need to generate reports. We need to have meetings, report back to, the director or even the partner on the project,
Right.
to see what's going on. It's a lot to handle, but then project management specifically is a core skill. It's an essential skill that you would need as a consultant. So we had, I think at the time I was using MS Project. So obviously looking at timelines, knowing which work streams were falling behind, which were even ahead of schedule, what individual tasks needed to be done, who the stakeholders were.
Okay.
It was the kind of thing where I printed out the entire project and pasted it on the wall just so that I could look at it every day, because it was that complex. But then it was also fun, because when you reach those milestones, you're like, oh yes, I'm definitely where I need to be, I'm ahead of schedule. And this was like a year long project, and during that time COVID hit. So yeah, it was the kind of thing where the strategy had to change a bit, timelines had to be moved. Just adjusting to that, was really complex.
And you're not at a client side then because of COVID.
Exactly.
It's difficult to get the data and everything.
Yes, exactly. It was a lot more difficult to get those things. I'm not, physically there saying, oh yeah, please could you hand me this file?
Yeah.
The things that weren't already digitalized then had to be scanned and sent. Yeah, that was just a whole other mess. But yeah, eventually, things worked out for the best.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And what do you think? What a typical day of a consultant looks like? And apart from that, this looks very dreading, the example which you gave. And how do you manage multiple projects to stay productive? In like, if you're working on multiple projects, or do you just work on one project? How does it work?
So my last role, I actually had multiple projects that I was working on. One which, I guess required me to manage like 15 different consultants from different countries.
Okay.
So again, it is a lot, but then time management, project management trumps everything. One thing that is essential is that occasionally you do need to take a breather, because burnout is one of those things that people talk about but don't really talk about.
Right.
Ideally, you want to get all your work done on time. Clients need to be satisfied, because consulting, you're working for clients. They're paying you to deliver results. If you're not delivering those results, then what exactly are you doing? So there's getting the work done on time, trying to even maybe over deliver or deliver ahead of schedule,
Right.
Ensuring everything stays within the scope, but then also occasionally taking that step back. So the last, I think during that time when I had those 2 projects, there was a rule where on Friday after 12 p.m., no more work. Anything that is left, unless it is urgent, like the client specifically asked for something, if it could wait until Monday, it was going to wait until Monday. There was no Saturday, there was no Sunday. And everything still got done on time, because rest was rest, right? You get your rest and then you come back energized, deliver all your work during the week.
Makes sense. Yeah, you have to at least put some boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be burned out, and then doesn't get more productive as well.
Exactly. And burnout doesn't go away until you rest. It just doesn't.
Yeah. No, that's a good way actually. Like the Friday 12 p.m. Right. Yeah, that's a good way to cut down on like put a boundaries for your time. Thank you for that. And what do you think you have developed as personal skills that you've developed or you have improved during the year now in your MBA, which is more from a leadership perspective, because we have leadership module also, and I'm assuming the next step would be a leadership role for us. What do you think you've improved onto that aspect?
Okay, so couple of things. I think yes, you mentioned the leadership module. I think that module has actually been very helpful because it's put structure around some things that I already knew and some things that I had no idea about myself specifically. But I think in terms of what I've gained from it, the first thing I would say is just more confidence in public speaking. So a lot of people don't know this or probably wouldn't even believe it, but then I was never really the person to, stand out in a crowd and speak. Yeah, because, it just wasn't really my thing. I'm like, oh, what if I say the wrong thing? Or what if just, the nerves kick in and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. But then understanding what message you're trying to deliver or what you're trying to say, being able to break it down simply and then just going ahead and saying it. Also, the confidence, right? Standing there, we have a lot of presentations, group presentations, individual presentations. You're constantly given the opportunity to, present. And that means you're going to speak in front of a bunch of people or in front of the class. So that has also helped me. And then, we have the public speaking club, right? Yeah. So those are, we've had 3 events already. Yeah. And again, it's the same thing, just practicing. It's almost always different people that are there. So you're always practicing in front of different people because again, in any leadership role, it's not necessarily going to be the same people you're going to talk to all the time. So yeah, that's the main thing I would say I've benefited from this.
Different situations to manage every time.
Exactly.
Yeah, different problems to solve. So yeah, and how in a different way you tackle the situations. No, yeah, and that has run. The module has run for 6 months for us. So I'm sure. And what are what are the things I would ask is you would wish you knew before starting your consulting career? You got into consulting, then you just started with KPMG. The things you would wish you would know before starting it and looking into hindsight.
Okay. This might be cliche, but then I wish I knew how to network better. That is knowing which stakeholders to, this sounds bad, prioritize, and then knowing which to, just, I guess, manage. Because in the end, right, if you want to be on a project that is, maybe it's a project that you believe you would benefit a lot from, maybe you would learn, it's also in line with your interests, you'd have to, again, it's not necessarily that staffing would put you on that project. It's not a guarantee. But then if maybe the director who is going to be, in charge of that project or the project manager or even the partner, right? You can then, I guess, have an in on that because you then want to specialize. And luckily for me, right, in a couple of instances, I got the kinds of projects that I wanted. Fortunately for me, I was in the right place at the right time. So I was like, okay, yeah, this works for me. Right. And it also helped me to know what I wanted to do. And again, that is what I'm doing right now. Process improvement is all the same. But not everyone gets that lucky. Yeah. And then someone might just end up in a loop of projects that they don't necessarily have any interest in. So yeah, knowing how to, I guess, network and also knowing how to manage stakeholders. So that's managing upwards as opposed to, downwards.
Managing your bosses.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a key skill to have. And then and MBA is teaching us networking.
Yeah.
From every angle.
Exactly.
All we're doing is networking every day. No? And from advice perspective, what advice would you give to prospective MBA students considering MBA and a future in like consulting, what would be your advice to them before starting their MBA, and what do they should do when?
Okay, so MBA first and then consulting, right?
Yeah.
For MBA, I would say, I mean, I have no other option but to encourage everyone that is even interested or remotely interested in doing an MBA to go for it.
Yeah.
Because I have a business background, consulting background. I've come to do my MBA and there's so much that I didn't know. Right? Yes, MBA is, business administration, but then irrespective of which field you're coming from, you're going to benefit from the MBA. We have we have doctors, we have sailors, we have ex-military currently, on the full-time MBA program, and the insights that I've gotten from them, I wasn't going to learn in any textbook, right? Understanding the experiences of others, knowing how they've dealt with different situations, the insights that you're going to gain, and knowing how you can then apply them going forward in your own career. I mean, it's, again, you can't read this anywhere, right? It's experience that others are sharing, and then you get to use it for yourself. So yeah, 100%. Be open-minded when you get into the MBA and be willing to learn, and don't feel like you already know everything. That would be my, the summary of the advice that I have for you.
Solving case studies, doing practicals, and then that's the main thing. Yeah, I mean, which we don't really pick up any time and then learn in the classroom. And like you're sitting with a group, applying, and then those concepts, and then solving those case studies. I mean, that helps a lot, and especially for consulting as well. And the next one is the advice for people considering a career in consulting.
Yeah, so I guess it also depends on which level you want to get into. I think I mentioned something along the lines of, if you have for example, I know the Big Four, they have their graduate trainee programs, right? Where you pretty much get introduced to consulting, and depending on which firm you're working with, they would give you like their own, I guess, frameworks, the way they choose to approach projects, how they treat clients and all of that. So it would be a solid foundation to get in. Usually this is like maybe after your undergrad level, or maybe if you just did like an MSc immediately afterwards, that would be a good route into consulting. But then if it's then, for example, post MBA, it's a little bit more challenging, especially if you don't have prior consulting experience. But then usually you would have some form of expertise which is applicable to almost any consulting firm, where it's like, okay, fine. If I've been in the medical field, not necessarily as a doctor or whatever, but if I've been in the medical field and there is a consulting firm that specializes in, clients in that particular industry, there's definitely going to be areas that pretty much how things work, and then you can contribute to, any project that comes up, and then you can position yourself that way. So again, don't necessarily need the consulting background. You can use, again, there's so many industries, right? There's so many sectors, there's so many whatever. So you can use that, leverage it, and then get into the industry. But then networking is as important as it always has been. Getting to know people in the industry, understanding which firms specialize in what, or which firms are better in what industries is also very important.
No, it makes sense. And even now, like everybody knows, everybody's talking about it. Like it's also happening overall that consulting is not picking up right now. I mean, there are more hiring happening in Middle East. London is not that great right now, or even the US. But everybody knows that the market is going to pick up. It's a cycle which is going to happen. So just keep doing what you're doing. Work towards it. You will.
Resilience.
Yeah. Thank you, Malik. Thank you for all those advice, and thank you for your time for us. Thank you, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode on consulting, and stay tuned. We are going to come up with more exciting episodes. Thank you.